This is a backup recording of the Colossus training that I had hosted on the 16th. Unfortunately, this is not live. This is after the fact, but I took enough notes to where I could probably start it off and you still get the same information as if you attended the class. So I'll go ahead and start here. The Colossus heavy tank is a global war asset available to outfits. It's crafted using outfit resources with a crafting time of 30 minutes. You must also have outfit permissions to use or pull them. It is upgraded using the merit system and not certifications. The Colossus is perhaps the most underutilized armory asset we have available. This is due to the fact they take a long time to craft, aren't exactly cheap, and have no easy way of gaining a reasonable amount of seat time. There is also the fear of losing one too quickly once it's pulled. The Colossus must also drive to their destinations and can only be pulled from tech plants or warp gates. By design, the Colossus is a purpose-built anti-Bastion platform, but still packs a punch against ground vehicles and aircraft. The Colossus has one driver with access to the main cannon and 4 gunners in each corner of the tank. Its combat weapon systems and abilities can be outfitted for a variety of combat scenarios. The Colossus also has access to a cordium storage system, allowing it to hold up to 10,000 cordium, and it begins with 5,000 cordium. This cordium tank is refillable by ants or the cordium recycler logistic slot upgrade and is used to power the bombardment shield or its mass accelerator drive ability. When firing in the Colossus in Skylance mode or using the mat ability, each shot will damage the hull of the tank. You might see this as a hit marker as taking friendly fire or enemy fire. Deploying the Colossus tank does turn it into Skylance mode, where it anchors itself to the ground and points skyward. The Skylance battery is capable of taking out a Bastion at range and piercing through aircraft. It must also undeploy in order to move and lower its main cannon to engage ground targets. However, if you deploy on a hill, you can angle your cannon so that it can be level with the ground and you can engage ground targets just as easily. If you use Esamir as an example when pulling a Colossus, it is the only continent where you will either pull at Isotech or the Warp Gate. There's no other place to pull a Colossus. Keeping in mind that you can only pull Colossus tanks from tech plants or warp gates. They must drive everywhere else. Before you pull one, erase the fear of losing a Colossus on the battlefield and accept the fact that it will die eventually anyway. Using a Colossus tank from the armory is cheaper than using an orbital strike. The Colossus can have a much longer lasting effect on the battlefield compared to an orbital strike. When an orbital strike is deployed, it's deployed and done and over with within 20 seconds, where a Colossus tank can be pulled, carefully planned out, and can last the entirety of an alert, depending on its situation it's put in. So you have a little more room to play with a Colossus. For anyone wondering what a basic composition for a squad should look like for a Colossus, it should consist of the Colossus tank fully manned, one fully manned Sunder, repair Sunder, one Mag Rider that's fully manned, one Lightning, and one Skyguard. So again, that is a repair Sunder, a Mag Rider, a Lightning, and a Skyguard, along with the Colossus tank itself fully manned. So in our platoons, the use of the Colossus. Platoon leaders with a Colossus should plan on operating in the following ways. Depending on its loadout, a Colossus should be doing one of 4 things: hunting Bastions, providing armor support, providing heavy logistics, or farming. A solid and very valid reason to pull a Colossus is to counter an enemy Bastion. The Bastion expect Bastions to target the Colossus and send waves of air and armor at you. Having a healthy balance of armor support is a must if you are trying this. Also keep in mind shielded bases that are nearby, such as tech plants, amp stations, and biolabs, so that you have opportunities to retreat back into cover in this scenario. Another reason to pull a Colossus is to help support friendly armor advances. The Colossus, when equipped with its default geckos for the gunners, can provide a barrage of general-purpose fire that damages all targets when manned. In this kind of scenario, enemy tanks would likely target the Colossus, opening up opportunities for friendly armor to retaliate. The Colossus, when in the hands of an experienced tanker, can also deal significant damage and hold its own, sniping down other MBTs. It has a high damage resistance and large health pool to work with. It's worth noting that its main cannon, unassisted, behaves like AP and Hesh combined, as in it deals the velocities and damage of AP, but also has the splash ability of Hesh, so you can engage infantry just as easily. Another strategy you can employ with the Colossus, and something that is rather underutilized, is to simply use the Colossus as a heavy AMS spawn point. The Colossus can, with the right attachments, ignore no deploy zones and allow you to put a hard spawn in an unexpected area of a base, such as Amp Station A Point or Tech Plant Garage Floor. Mind you, you would have to plan on taking the shields down, but you would be able to stick a spawn point literally right on the point, right under it. When you're doing this, it causes enemy forces to split between going after the Colossus or the capture point, and it potentially can swing hard to cap bases in your favor. It's best used in Zergs or when the population is pushing down the same lattice. Another way you could use this is if you're coordinating with an infantry platoon. It can be very rewarding for both the faction and your platoon if it's successfully executed. The last way you could use a Colossus, and it's really the easiest way, is just to use it to farm. You can pull it during low population hours to get seat time in it and have enemies come to you. You could drive around the map, crashing fights, and just simply drive to the next fight if you get bored. Non-alert hours, double XP, these are all great opportunities to get seat time in the Colossus and make some fun for your platoons and squads. And it's also a good opportunity if you were making purple and we're full, you can pull a Colossus, and if you keep it up enough while we have a purple base under our control, you can actually get the Colossus for free. Or it ends up being free, let's put it that way. So when driving the Colossus, I'm going to touch a little bit on that next. The Colossus is a slow-moving, super heavy tank. While it can cross a variety of terrain, it does not like rough or narrow terrain. Gullies, valleys, and uneven terrain can get the Colossus stuck or tipped over. Avoid hitting embankments on an angle, as it is top-heavy and likes to roll over. Overall, just avoid going off beaten path and try sticking to well-known paths, roads, or open fields until your destination is reached. If you are retreating, try not to reverse for too long. You drive much faster forwards and away from danger. Your damage resistances will keep you alive long enough to perform this maneuver. So if I elaborate on that a little more, if you need to retreat, but perform a full turn and retreat while driving forward. In other words, drive in the opposite direction forward. Try not to back up very long. It's super slow as it is, let alone backing up on top of that. So just pull a full turn and drive away. So we've already talked about deploying the Colossus into Skylance mode. The bombardment shield that encases around it when it's in this mode, while active, vehicles and friendly infantry can fire out of it, and it also absorbs incoming damage from its Cordium reserves. So rather than the Colossus take damage from its health pool, it will take it will use up Cordium to soak up damage until it empties. The more damage you tank, the faster the shields will drain, and it's worth noting that ants can refill your Colossus's Cordium reserves. I'm going to touch on again when you're in Skylance mode or activating the MAD ability. Again, if you're firing, your weapon is going to overheat and cause you to take damage. So each shot will damage the hull of your tank, regardless of if your shields are up or not. If you stop firing in these modes and just treat it as a regular tank, i.e. not deploying into Skylance mode or activating the MAD ability, then you'll stop taking damage from your shots. It'll behave just like a super heavy tank. A lot of that damage is negated simply by just having a rep bus nearby, so that's something else to keep in mind. So that's driving a Colossus. What about defending one? A Colossus, in my opinion, should have no less than one squad dedicated to its protection at all times, regardless of what its goal is. The squad protecting it should be actively feeding each other information and keep the Colossus driver updated on changing battlefield conditions and warn of any impending threat. Other things to consider: if you are the driver of the Colossus, you should always be in self-preservation mode. Do what is necessary to ensure your survival, even if it means retreating to safety without the consent of the squad or platoon lead. Everything else can easily be replaced for nanites, whereas the Colossus cannot be. Living to fight another day here can be beneficial. Platoon leaders, squad leaders, and the Colossus driver should be aware of nearby shielded bases for retreat and call for a retreat when needed. Simply saying Colossus falling back to location would suffice. The attached squad should stick with the Colossus at all times. Other friendlies in the area should also assist in the retreat if they are able. Gunners of the Colossus, it is essential to be paying attention and not leave your post. Having 4 guns on something is vastly superior than having 1 or 2 on them. Should also assist in repairs of the tank at every opportunity. The biggest threat to a stationary Colossus are C4 ferries, enemy valve drops, and infantry drops. The use of anti-personnel mines, Spitfire turrets, caltraps, and Skylance shields should be placed around the Colossus to aid in its defense. These items should not be placed directly behind the Colossus and block its means of retreat. You should never be behind a Colossus directly. Whether you're in a vehicle or placing down turrets, there should be absolutely no reason to ever have anything directly behind a Colossus or even near a Colossus's path. So that's defending a Colossus. What about attacking? There will be times as a platoon or squad lead where you may need to take out an enemy Colossus, and there's a couple strategic ways to go about this. From the air is generally going to be the quickest method you can deploy as a squad or platoon lead to get to your target and put huge damage on it. Sights with light PPA take down Colossus shield quickly, while Hornet missiles make quick work of its hull. Valk drops of light assaults with C4 can make quick work of unsuspecting stationary Colossus, and lastly, tank buster shredder libs can also make quick work of killing these machines. And again, you're kind of looking at these as options from the air, because air is going to allow you to bypass other targets and get directly to the target quicker than, say, ground. That doesn't mean ground isn't an option. I'm going to go over the ground engagement next, which out of the two, definitely the harder of them. Ground engagement of an enemy Colossus is still a fun and viable option. A good rule of thumb is to target the support sunder of an enemy Colossus and then focus fire on the Colossus itself. So you should target the rep bus first and then the Colossus if you can at all help it. Friendly tankers should ignore all other targets and focus on the Colossus to force it to displace if the enemy Colossus is in a tight spot. Firing on it and causing it to displace so that you can get better shots on it or its support is also an option. So you got to kind of read your battlefield situation there. Infantry can still assist too. So like if the Colossus is near a base, you can still light assault it, use lock-on heavies and AV loadout maxes to harass and overwhelm it. So focus firing on it every chance you get will also take down a Colossus. That's it for my philosophy on the Colossus. During the training, we went over all of the general modules and we drove the Colossus around so you get a feel for it. So I encourage, if you're listening to this, go into VR, drive it around, read some of the modules that you can equip, and check out some of the weapons you can put on it. But generally speaking, You want to do fire suppression, fallout hardening, and then either AMS logistics or accordion recycler. It's just going to depend on your situation and your loadout. I say fallout hardening because it will allow you to survive a single orbital strike, and everything else just kind of mitigates damage, mitigates cooldowns. They're not really essential to keeping the Colossus alive if you really want to dive down the rabbit hole of that. We went over it in a little more detail during the training, but the general overview of the Colossus itself is what I just kind of read to you here in this format. So I encourage you, pull one. If you haven't pulled one, request one to be pulled. Anyone can request one to be pulled in the Discord, and we can get that done for you. And have fun. Don't be afraid to pull one. And I hope this training or lecture finds you well, and maybe you'll look at the Colossus a little different, not be as scared to pull one or use one in your platoons. Thanks.